how do we lead our organizations through this change and through this period where we have to be both more resilient, responsive to what's changing, because the pandemic has forced us to do things entirely differently. And how do we then carry forward in that? And in fact, in many ways, digital transformation has been something that's been disrupting organizations for a long time, either industries or agencies, of bringing in new ways of working. And in fact, if you think about it, a lot of organizations that had been on the leading edge of dealing with and preparing for digital transformation were very well prepared for the pandemic when it started to happen, because they pivoted. And this was just another disruption that they were reacting to. And so if you think about digital transformation, if you look at it, you know, World Economic Forum published a fantastic study that defines this. This is the executive summary is 80 pages. You know, so take that for what it's worth. It's a really very good read, actually, because they detail out industry by industry and sector by sector what are the impacts of it. But it's about developing and delivering new customer experiences. It's exactly what we're talking about. It's about new efficiencies. It's about entirely new business models like Uber Eats, which Harold mentioned earlier. It's really how do we change and how do we transform and how do we get better? And in fact, if you think about digital transformation, it's a huge deal. I mean, I need to update the slide. It's 2.4 trillion this year. I need to get the more current data on this, but it's a massive change. And it's about resilience. It's about how do we improve and make ourselves more resilient to change, whether that change is a pandemic or whether that change is a new entrant in the market or a new expectation from our citizens or a new change, you know, globally that as an agency we have to deal with. All of this gets into us being able to respond and react to it. And it gets to this other idea about digital transformation, which is about being able to adapt as we're on our journey. It's not as if we're building something or developing something that we're going to build the whole thing. And in fact, what we're trying to build may be the wrong thing by the time we get done if we don't adapt. And really, we have to have the ability to iterate, and we have to have the ability, which is what we talked about earlier, to iterate and learn and adapt to what really is needed. This is how we listen to the voice, you know, we might say voice of the customer. How do you listen to what the employees and customers really need, not by what they tell you, but by what they do? This is really what we have to learn how to do. And this is indeed difficult, right? This is not easy. It's much easier to say, oh, I want to build something, and we draw the blueprints for what we're going to build and we go build it. But in fact, oftentimes we don't really understand the exact needs. And so we have to really think of then, how do we break down and adapt our culture so that way we are able to be dynamic and listen to the changing conditions, which means we have to collaborate from team to team, not only team to team, but also across the boundaries between us and our customers, which is what we talked about earlier. People, leaders at all levels have to be empowered. They have to be empowered to try to drive the change in order to implement those changes. They have to be able to work and have visibility across the whole life cycle as to what they're doing. It's one thing to make changes when you're doing things in a vacuum or in a silo, but the reality, we need to give people the visibility into the entire workflow so that the way they can make those changes. And you want to make it easy. We talked about it in onboarding employees, government employees. We can make it even easier if we define some of these processes and we work to become more resilient. And I think, and I think part of, I don't know if people would disagree with me, you know, vehemently, but I think part of being resilient really is about being able to run and operate at high speed. It's about being able to be nimble and responsive as opposed to being slow and stuck in one way of working. It's about being able to react and respond. And I think it's velocity is one of the key things that are core to resilience. And with that, you know, I want to share at least a little bit about what I've learned, you know, as an IT leader, because I'm a developer and an IT leader, plus I also work at GitLab. As an IT leader, one of the things I've learned here at GitLab is a little bit about how we work quickly and about how we do things in a high speed way. And I don't know if these are indicators of velocity, if these are meaningful. I don't know, 3,500 deploys a day. I think that's pretty fast. We do monthly releases. You know, we've done it for, I don't know, 110 monthly releases of significant releases with hundreds of features and capabilities in GitLab that we're, as a community, we're building together and shipping. And so I think we're working relatively quickly as an organization of 1,300 people who all work remotely. And I want to share a little bit about how we do it. And I'm going to spend the next 6 minutes or so going through a couple of key points about how we do it. And maybe you can learn from it and take some tips away or advice. Be glad to go further into it. But one of the things we do is we really do believe in this idea of true cross-functional collaboration across the organization. You know, at the core, we believe everyone can contribute. And we've been building our processes and our tools and our approach to enable people to collaborate and to contribute. And some of the ways we do this, for example, in all of our meetings, in all of our work, we use shared documents to document agendas, to work collaboratively. Every single meeting has an agenda where we are live editing the agenda and taking minutes and typing as we go. All of it's public. into the company internally. And in many cases, we share them publicly outside of the company. So it's about sharing and collaboration. And then it's about how do we document and capture what are the issues and what are the work streams coming out of this in a way that allows everyone to have complete visibility about what we're working on. And so in this example, this is a screenshot from about a year ago where we were actually had a public board planning one of our releases for the agile planning parts of GitLab. And the team is doing this, it's all entirely public and open to the community to collaborate. And the reason this is so powerful is not only do we all have visibility into what's happening, but we also break down the barriers. And this is a comment that a customer, a prospect even made up. He says a potential GitLab customer user chiming in here, asking for a feature and a capability about cumulative flow diagrams. What's powerful is it's this collaboration and sharing that because we're open and transparent, because we're bringing the customers and the users into this discussion, we're able to also iterate in the direction that makes sense. And speaking of iteration, I mean, I know we talked about Tesla, but this is an example of what happens when you iterate. In this case, these are really large iterations, but think about iteration differently. I want you to think about iteration in a way that I think is really powerful, which is this. Size matters. And Harold talked about minimum viable product earlier, but the size of your iteration matters. At GitLab, we've embraced this idea not of minimum viable product or minimum viable function, but we believe in minimum viable change. We try to break our changes down into the smallest change that makes things better. If I can implement a change to a website, or if we implement a change to the application that's better, then that qualifies and we should keep going. And the faster we put it out and get feedback, then that's better. It doesn't have to be perfect. This requires a fairly high degree of cultural shift of saying, oh gosh, I'm so used to having to publish things that are perfect, the perfect first draft. This is a case in which the outline is good enough, publish it and get feedback. And this becomes a key of the way we work. The other thing that's, I think, key to the way we work that we've embraced is the power of our pipeline, and the power of a pipeline to really embed security and quality and compliance into a way that's automated to make it easy. And so as we work on developing and delivering code, we've embedded security scans and automated testing and container scans. We've embedded the best practices of how we do deployments and how we do configuration all into a single automated pipeline. So that way, when a developer makes a change, they get almost immediate feedback about the quality and the security of the change they've made. Rather than the way it's historical, that you wait till the end, until way at the end when security takes a look at a change to give you feedback. This way, the developer gets it right away. Powerful because we can go much faster and manage the risk. We've embraced infrastructure as code. We can go farther into all the power of this, but what it really means is that we don't wait for environments. We don't wait. We're able to see temporary test environments of everything we do and test it and review it. We're able to use containers and Kubernetes to deploy faster and manage that. And then we also embrace this idea, and we talked about it, I think, a little bit earlier on the call, and it's something I think that's really at the core of the way we work, is this idea. We may not say Kaizen a lot internally, but the idea of continuous improvement is something that's at the core of what we do. And as we implement minimum viable changes, as we adopt processes, as we do things at GitLab, we publicly talk about what we did. This is a public live stream of a release retrospective. We do it every month, actually. And in this image, you see everything from directors to engineers all engaging and having a conversation about what worked, what didn't, and getting feedback from the community as well. It comes back to then we publish. We publish everything into our handbook. It's like 3,000 pages long of how we work. The things we've learned, we publish, we write it down. That way we know what we're supposed to do and what we've agreed to do. And so in a summary, the 5 things I think that we're doing is we've broken our silos down. We don't have silos between our customers. We don't have silos between each other. We work very collaboratively. Small changes, minimum viable change. That's really powerful. We automate as much as we can, including how we manage infrastructure, which we treat infrastructure as code, and we embrace continuous improvement. That's allowed us to do some stuff that's pretty cool, right? This shows the number of features we release each year, and I keep running out of room on this chart, and every time a designer touches it, they always try to change it, but we literally are running out of space. GitLab, if you didn't know, we cover the entire DevOps lifecycle. Everything from how you plan and manage your work, to how you manage your code, to do the automated testing, to doing security scanning and deploying into production. We're trying to be effectively a software factory in a box to make it easy for teams to stand up and do the right processes and to do the right thing with DevOps practices really built in from the beginning. We've been doing it since 2011. We incorporated in 2014. We're an open source project. We've got we had lots of really, really powerful recognition from lots of organizations and people and great customer case studies across the public sector as well. I think that's pretty much the end of my content that I wanted to try to get through and share at least a little bit about what we're doing and how we're helping with resilience.